it's Alice, and I'm here with the most controversial video of the year, my worst books of 2021. So, 2021 was a mixed reading year. I've read nearly 120 books, which is about 100 less than I normally do. I've basically finished nothing for the last 3 months. But the beginning of the year was going really well, so I got quite a lot read in that time and then just tapered off quite dramatically. I haven't looked at my reading stats yet. I'll be doing a reading stats video hopefully by the end of the month, if not very early in January. So I don't know my breakdowns for 1 star, 2 star, 3 star, 4 star, 5 star yet, but I feel like I've been reading more 4 and 5 stars because not only have I been rereading a fair amount, but I've also been reading books by authors that I know I love. I've been reading books I'm really excited about. I think I'm finally getting to the stage where I'm reading the books that I want to be reading rather than just reading whatever's popping up on NetGalley and grabbing it while I can. So that means that it was hard, actually, to pick the books for this list. What I've basically done is just loaded up Goodreads, scrolled through the books I've read this year, seen which ones make me feel the grumpiest, and those ones are my worst books. So it might not be all 1 stars. Some of the 1 stars that I've mentioned on Goodreads might not actually be in this list. But these are the books that I think were the worst ones that I read this year. We're going to start off with one that still thoroughly disappoints me, and that's Game Changer by Neil Shusterman. I've done a rant review about this one over on my blog. I have talked about this a few times about how much it disappointed me because it was one of my most anticipated releases of the year. It was Neil Shusterman's first book after The Toll, which was the 3rd book in the Arc of the Scythe series, and was perfect. That whole series was absolutely perfect and I loved it from start to finish. So I was so excited to read Game Changer, which was about a boy who gets an injury during football and he kind of falls into an alternate universe and he's like falling through layers of time. There were a few things about this one that annoyed me. The primary one being that it just felt too preachy. There was lots of everything going on, really, and it felt like if Neil Shusterman had focused on one issue that he was trying to discuss, it might have been more impactful, but there were discussions of feminism, racism, classism, and the fact that they were all overlapping with each other and they weren't very intensely focused upon made them feel like they weren't being addressed properly. And it felt quite shallow to me. I can imagine some people, if it was the first time that they've been introduced to some of these concepts, thought that they were well explored, and it definitely opens up the potential to read more on those subjects in the future. But for me, it just felt shallow. And I also didn't like the fact that there were like quite a few references to COVID in there. I get it because COVID's been a big thing, but I don't know why when you're like in the middle of a pandemic, quite clearly in the middle because we're a year later and COVID lockdowns are happening again. Like, I don't know why you would think that that was a cute or quirky thing to decide to just pop into your literature. I think it would be better to not mention it, because it very much felt like a COVID happened and COVID is over thing. And now at the end of the year, I wonder if I reread it now, if it would feel like horribly dated because of that reference. I'm not a huge fan of pop culture references in books anyway, but apparently I'm not a huge fan of pandemic references either. I gave that one 2 stars though. Like, I didn't give it 1 star, even though I probably should have, because it still makes me really mad. The next book I'd like to talk about was Crossed by Ali Condé. I read the whole Match trilogy this year and I didn't enjoy any of them. I think I gave Match 3 stars and Reached 2 stars, so Crossed was the only one that got a 1 star from me. But my entire review of this one on Goodreads was just, oh, which pretty much sums it up. So at the end of book 1, spoilers incoming, but I don't care, it's a really old series, you can deal with them, just plug your ears and go la 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 for a minute. At the end of book 1, the main character and her love interest have been separated, and then the majority of book 2 is just them trying to find each other again. So there's lots of aimless walking, and lots of like, oh, Kai was just here, Kai's not here anymore, oh no, where's Kai, oh no, like, oh, I don't care, I really don't care, just like, get over it. You've got more important stuff going on. You don't need to be like wandering into a massive gully trying to find the love of your life who you've known for about 3 fucking minutes. I don't care for this series at all. I just don't really like it. And the second book was the worst one because it felt unnecessary. This could have easily been a duology. It would have been tighter and neater and it might have been better as a duology, but instead there was just so much padding in book 2 and it was so close to putting me into a reading slump, and I don't know how it didn't, but I'm wondering whether it was actually like the residual shockwaves from that one that caused the reading slump when it did come. These are in no particular order, by the way. These are just all 10 books that really pissed me off. The third of which is The Great Gone by Meg Rossoff, which Great concept, terrible execution. So the main character in The Great Garden is nameless and genderless, allegedly. But they are written in... Oh, it doesn't feel authentically genderless, because I had an idea in my head of what I thought the character was, and Sean had an idea in his head of who he thought the character was, and they pretty much matched up exactly. I've read reviews on Goodreads where people have described who they think the character is, and it matches up pretty exactly. So I feel as though, because of their behaviour and because of the language and because of the way that they're spoken about, it doesn't feel genderless, even if it's meant to be. I didn't like the fact that there's some slut shaming in this one, there's some fat shaming in this one. It feels like a terrible YA rip-off of The Great Gatsby, and I love The Great Gatsby, and I don't like terrible YA rip-offs of anything. I've realised because of this book that Meg Rossoff is just an author that I'm never going to enjoy, because this is the third book of hers that I've read, and I think the highest I rated any of them was 3 stars, and that was very generous. So I won't be reading Meg Rossoff's books again. So thank you to The Great Garden for that, at least. But this one really pissed me off. Like, really. It was definitely the worst book on the YA Book Prize shortlist. And it's one of the only ones that I've rated, like, less than 3 stars normally. Just by being on the shortlist, they're automatically, like, 3 star. Because even if I don't particularly gel with the writing style, I still like the themes. Or if I like the themes and I don't gel with the writing style. But this one, I just didn't like any of it. And I think it was only shortlisted because of who Meg Rossoff is, rather than the merits of the book. Controversial! I did warn you I'd be spilling the tea on this one. Whoops. The 4th most terrible book I read this year was Heaven Has No Regrets by Tessa Schaefer. This one is one that I kind of hate myself for hating, because it was written about somebody who lost their cousin. I think their cousin died, and they wrote it as like a tribute, but it's just really cheap and nasty. Ooh, I am really not holding back today, am I? Oh boy, I'm in one of those moods. So basically, at the beginning of the book, you know that one of either of the cousins is dead, but you don't know which one, because the chapters that are told now are told without specifying a name, without giving any specifics on the characterization, just kind of generally, like, I am mourning, my cousin is dead, I am mourning. And then you jump back and you're following the 2 cousins in the lead up to this. If it was one or the other, it would probably be fine, but because you don't know who's dead, it's meant to be like a mystery, but it doesn't feel very mysterious, and it kind of cheapens the impact when they do eventually die. And I think if it had just been these 2 cousins, like, alternating perspectives all the way through the book, like, seeing one of them get, like, health issues, one of them, like, binge eating, and having that contrast of, like, the mental illness and the physical illness, I think it might have been more impactful if it hadn't been for that knowledge that one of them's dead, and that kind of, oh, just get on with it, I want to know which one it is. It just made me really angry, and I also found some of the language very triggering. Yeah, this was just a mess all around for me. Book number 5 was Sword in the Stars by Corey McCarthy and A.R. Capetta. This is a sequel, and it's a King Arthur retelling, and I should probably just give up on King Arthur retellings by now, because I really have never liked any of them apart from Legendborn, but I loved Legendborn, so maybe that was worth it. I don't know. But this was not good. This was... The things that were discussed in book 2 should have been discussed in book 1, because I feel as though if you're writing a book that's filled with a queer cast, so you've got agender characters, you've got trans characters, you've got asexual characters, you've got bisexual characters, you've got gender non-conforming characters, if you've got, like, demi-boys and demi-girls and all of that going on, people who need to be educated on trans rights and people who need to be educated on acceptance aren't the kind of people that would read a book like that and then also pick up the sequel. But in the sequel, that's where all of the discussions about equality and the discussions about kind of accepting people for their differences all come in. So it feels very preachy, because if people are already picking up the sequel, they already agree with those messages and those themes. Whereas it would be more impactful having that in book 1. But book 1 is so intensely focused on the plot and the story. And then that means that book 2 feels very slow and dreary, because it's just full of these, like, little tirades. I also didn't like the fact that the baby gets born and... Oh, there's just a whole thing. Like, the baby's born and they're like, oh... I can't remember what it was that annoyed me about it, but it was like... the mum didn't want to refer to the baby as anything, really, because they didn't want to choose the baby's gender for them, because they wanted the baby to be able to choose how they identify when they were old enough. I can't even remember how it was that it was discussed about it, but they just seemed like really, really bummed out by the fact that it was a boy, or like it was male presenting. And you can't be like, yeah, I'm going to let my child choose their own gender and then have a boy or have a baby with a penis and be like, oh, bummed out about it. Let's really hope that they choose to be female when they're older. I just think that if you are saying that you would accept your children no matter what their gender identity, you have to accept that from the beginning. You can't just be like, I'll just accept you when you decide that you're a male. I'll just tolerate the fact that you're a male until then. It just didn't feel very natural. And I know it was probably trying to be trans inclusive and trying to be like just inclusive and nice, but it just didn't work for me. The sixth book on this list, and the one that Sean's getting most surprised to see on here, is Witches Steeped in Gold by Shannon Smart. I gave this one 3 stars. Sean, I think, gave it 1 star. He really, really hated it. But I'm mostly putting this on here because of how much of a disappointment it was. This was one of my most anticipated books of 2021, similar to Game Changer. It was a debut novel. It sounded like it was going to be amazing, like a Jamaican-inspired fantasy with black girl magic and lots of empowered women. And I thought it was going to be sapphic, and it wasn't sapphic. And instead you get quite a bland romance, and it all just feels very terribly edited. It feels about 100 pages longer than it needs to be. There's lots of repetition, there's lots of grammatical errors and turns of phrase that just don't make sense. And I think if there had been another pass through and another kind of tighten up with the copy editor, it might have worked better for me. But as somebody who is intensely interested in copy editing and proofreading, it threw me out of the story every single time because I was proofreading it as I went. So I was reading it out loud to Sean and I was editing it as I was going, and that just basically demolished the story for me. Am I going to read the sequel? Probably. Should I read the sequel? Probably not. I'm interested to know how the story ends. I'm just hoping that they will have listened to people's criticisms and they will have tightened it up a little bit, because this has got quite a bad average rating on Goodreads, because it seems like a lot of people are having the same problems, that the slow sections are too slow and the editing just isn't good enough. And it's just such a shame, because this could have been one of the best debut novels of all time, based off of the hype beforehand and based off of how many people were so excited by this. But it feels like a lot of people were in the same boat as me and they did end up being quite disappointed. And even though I only gave this one 3 stars and it probably shouldn't be on this list, I'm still disappointed enough that I need to feature it here, which I'm sorry about. Book number 7, The Fandom Rising by Anna Day. Worst sequel I've ever read, completely unnecessary. It was only about 180 pages and the first book was about 400 pages, so you can tell that a lot of thought and effort went into the sequel. There was one part where there's 2 characters alternating. God, it's been that long I can't remember their names. I want to say it's Violet and Alyce? Maybe? But whichever one is talking refers to themselves in the third person, refers to the other character as I. So that proves how well edited this was, if there's literally like instances in the dual perspectives of the characters forgetting which one of them is talking, because there's just no difference between the characters. I don't remember the first book being a dual perspective, and I don't think the second one needed to be, so I'm not quite sure what was going on there. I can't see how the story would have been told without that, but it would have probably been longer, and I think a bit more flesh on these bones could have helped it. It was just dreadful. I gave this one 1 star, and if I could have given it no stars, I would have. I wish I could unread this book. That's how much I hated it. That is the worst thing. It's also made me unhaul. Have I unhauled it yet? Yeah, I think I literally have. It made me want to actually unhaul the first one, even though it was a signed personalised copy, because I just don't want to remember it because of how much I hate the sequel. Well, book number 7, another 1 star, Attachments by Rainbow Rowell. Why does anybody like this? It is creepy as all hell. The guy is down in his basement reading all of their emails, and he's like, well, I'm not going to sanction them because I'm like falling in love with her. And he reads their emails and he falls in love with her through her emails. And then she like bumps into him in the office, and then she starts emailing her friend and is like, oh my god, have you seen the new IT guy? He is so cute. So he's like, right, okay, I'm going to quit and I'm going to leave her a letter being like, sup, I read all your emails and I know you want a bone. And then she's obviously going to be like really freaked out. I can't even remember how they got together in the end because it was just so far-fetched. Because, what? Really? What? It's fine because he might be a creepy IT guy, but oh, he's like ripped and buff and he's got curly brown hair and he goes to the gym. Like, no, that doesn't make it okay. That's like Joe from You. He's Pem Bladgley, I don't know how to say his surname. Like, he's hot enough, but like, if he's creepy stalking you, you're still not going to be enjoying it. Like, come on, guys. What? No! No! Just delete your emails, report him to HR or something. I mean, he's already quit at this point. Report him to, like, the internet police and get him locked up. Don't, like, move in with him and be like, oh, I'm still in love with you, even though you met me by reading my emails and thoroughly invading my privacy. Honestly. Oh my god. Why? Why? Next. The Pact by Amy Henderich. This is my 9th book, and I will be honest with you, it makes me angry because I know how much I didn't like it, but I can't remember why I didn't like it. My camera died, but I'm back now, and as I was saying, I read Shame on You earlier in the year, and I really quite enjoyed it. I thought that it was a good look at social media and the way that it impacts people and the way people pretend to be somebody else online. I didn't love it. I only gave it 3 stars, but it made me really excited to read more of Amy Henderich's writing. And so when I saw that The Pact was on my library app, I was like, yeah, okay, this one has a great concept. A girl gets murdered, and it's like there's a pact, and one of her co-workers who she's been bullying is like in the frame for it, but it's probably not her. It might be her ex-boyfriend because her ex-boyfriend is dating the new girl. It's all very office-based drama. It sounds like a really great domestic thriller. There's a journalist who is involved, who is investigating the murder, who is becoming friends with them, like getting herself into the office and trying to get to the bottom of everything. But it's just a terrible execution. I thought it was so bland. Like when somebody is getting bashed to death in the shower and you're thinking, thank God that finally happened because nothing else has happened for basically this entire book. That's not the way to feel. Yeah, I thought it was interesting though because the guy, the boyfriend, he basically says to the new girlfriend that he's just been playing her this whole time and that to impress a woman all you've got to do is to pretend to have the same interests as them. So he was like, yeah, I just told you I liked your favourite band and I told you that our favourite foods were the same and you just fell for me instantly. And it's really fascinating to wonder, like, do guys actually do that? Because I've known friends in the past who have been like, oh yeah, this person, like, they like this and they like that and they like this, and it's like, okay, but that's not at all what I've known of that person. And to see how people twist it to like impress people, and I think that aspect of it was fascinating, but just all the rest of it was dreadful. I can't even remember what happened in it. Normally if I can't remember a book less than 6 months after reading it, it means it's been a pretty shit time. And the last book that I'm going to mention today is one that I actually finished last week, which is probably why it's fresh in my mind, and it's why it's the one that I knew I was going to talk about this one before anything else, and that's Meet Cute Diary by Emery Lee. This is Emery Lee's debut novel. It's a trans love story about a trans character who has started this diary on Tumblr called the Meet Cute Diary, and they post all of these fake meet cute stories of trans love to inspire and uplift the rest of the trans community. I had this on my anticipated reads list on my blog, and I thought I was going to love it because it's got such a cute cover, it's got such a cute concept, it sounded like it was going to be perfect, but the main character is just absolutely dreadful. They are so self-absorbed, and there's multiple conversations throughout when they are talking to their best friend, and the best friend's like, you never ask me about myself, you never try and give me any kind of love or attention, it's always just me. And the main character basically contradicts him and is like, no, I'm not like that. I don't think I do that. I don't think I do that at all. And it's like, well, can't you see that you're currently doing it? You are literally doing it as you are being told that you do it. And you're like, no, I don't do it. Hypocrisy. I hate it. And then for about, spoilers now, but for about half a chapter at the end of the book, the main character's like, I'm going to love my friends and I'm going to give them so much attention and I'm finally going to ask people about them rather than just about myself. Wow, it took you like over 300 pages to actually experience some character growth, and I'm not here for that. I liked the Tumblr entries spiced through, because there are comments around the blogs, there are reply chains, there are other things going on in the background. But there's also this whole thing when another blog accuses the author of the Meet Cute diary of stealing their Meet Cute. And I thought it would have been interesting if that had been linked to someone who was in Noah's life, rather than having it that it was just not really addressed again. It just got brushed over, kind of brushed under the carpet, and it was like, okay, yeah, we're completely changing what the Meet Cute diary is, but we're not really going to address the fact that we got accused of stealing. But yes, I don't think that it was very well executed, and I think that I loved... or did I? It's hard to talk about it, because I loved the fact there's a character who uses non-standard pronouns, but the pronouns change very rapidly. So whereas I've never seen them used in a book, I've never seen EM used in a book. And it was lovely to see those pronouns being used, but because the character changes pronouns every chapter or so, trying new things, it makes me feel like it might have been too much at once. If A had chosen to be EM from the beginning, or if A had been Zem for a little bit longer. But for a lot of readers, it's going to be the first time that they have interacted with these pronouns. It's going to be the first time that they've seen pronouns like these on the pages. And I think actually giving them time to get their head around it and to embrace it fully might have been more effective than having 1 or 2 chapters with one pronoun and then 1 or 2 chapters with another pronoun and then a switch again. I did like the fact that those different gender identities and those different pronouns were being explored. I liked the fact that there was a gender non-conforming character who was exploring their identity, because I've read quite a few this year, like Felix Ever After, like Noah, the main character in this book, where it's a trans character who is trans, has come to terms with the fact that they're trans, they're out, and they are living life with their new gender. But there hasn't been many releases this year where you've had people questioning and exploring more thoroughly their gender identity. So I liked seeing that on the page. I just didn't feel as though it was executed very well, because it felt a bit too rushed. That was the only thing that I didn't like about it. I just thought it was a bit too rushed. If it had been taken a bit slower, then possibly. Also, having the 2 love interests as Devin and Drew, the names were just very similar for me, and I struggled to remember the differences between them. And again, just having the main character be the most unlikable character I think I've ever read did not appeal to me. I will read more of Emily Lee's writing in the future, because I do think A have a very good writing style, and I would be interested in reading more from M, but I'm not sure whether this one was the best place to start my reading journey with M. I kind of wish I'd waited for A to have a few more releases and then picked up one of their releases. And those are the 10 worst books that I read this year. I have not touched upon my DNFs. I may do a video about books I've DNF'd this year. I don't actually think there were that many. I can only really think of one, which is good, because I had quite a few last year when I started trying to DNF. So the fact that I've managed to get through everything this year proves that they weren't that bad. Even some of the books on this list are ones that I don't feel like they were the worst. Like, I wouldn't burn any of these in a fire. Would I? Possibly the Match trilogy. But I wouldn't use most of these as firewood. So that proves that they're not that bad. If you liked any of these books, then please let me know why. I'd like to have a discussion, see if there are aspects of them that I didn't consider that might change my perspective on them, that might make me like them more. If you hated all of these books, let me know why. Let's revel in our hatred together. If you like this video, please give it a like, and if you'd like to subscribe, we would be super duper grateful. We're posting a new video every single day in December, so you've got another few days from us before we can actually have a break and not film continually and not constantly be uploading. But we hope you've enjoyed Bookmas so far, and I hope that you like this video. Bye! This can be the thumbnail. Fuel me with rage. You've got to have a good thumbnail there, surely.